We're going to go game by game, matchup by matchup, and see which players could exceed expectations for Week 11 and be that sneaky start. These are not players we're recommending to start. We're not starting them, but this is for those fantasy gamers who are stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and they're looking at Kyle Phillips right now, and they're wondering what to do here because they're hurt that bad. They're in a deep league. They got a lot of injuries. They got some bye weeks, and you know what? I'm here for everybody. So we're going to go deep on this channel and help you with these sneaky starts to see what you need to do this week. But what you really need to do right now is click that subscribe button, tap it with the mouse on your computer, tap it with the finger on your phone, because we're going to help you with your research. We're going to help you with waivers. We cover the waiver wire extensively, deeper than any other channel on YouTube. We're going to help you with your lineups, and then you're going to want to hit that button so you don't miss out with your research going into the 2024 season. Plus, Ric Flair's watching you. You don't want to disappoint him. Click that button. Stop missing out. Let's look at these 13 sneaky starts for Week 11 here. And the first matchup we're looking at is the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. We got a 48 over-under here. That's kind of high considering what we're seeing with over-unders these last few weeks. So Vegas is saying, hey, we might get some high scoring here. If not, we'll definitely get multiple fantasy contributors. Something to pay attention to. But one guy who might sneak up on us who's been very quiet is Jameson Williams. He's getting a 7.2 average depth of target in his last two games. Those are too short of targets for him. He's a deep ball guy. He's deep ball city. But one thing we're noticing is his snaps are increasing a little bit. He's getting a little bit more opportunity, but it's not enough to really make him fantasy relevant. However, it's against the Bears. And if they decide to chuck a deep shot here and there to Williams, that could mean he could be fantasy relevant. He could sneak. He could exceed expectations. He's a dart throw. If you're hurting, that's what you're looking at. That's one thing what you should do and strategize around. If you're really hurting on your lineups, look for wide receivers who are deep threats, who are seeing snaps and routes. Put them in and close your eyes and hope for the best, because if they bring in a home run ball, then you're hitting a home run too and you're having a good week. More than likely, they're not going to produce like you're seeing what Jameson Williams is doing. But still, if you're hurting in your lineups and you see a guy like Rashid Shaheed there, put him in. See what happens. You know what? You're going to chase the upside with that. And if he cashes in, you're going to hit big. If not, you're not going to be too far off compared to the other wide receivers on the waiver wire. Looking at the Cardinals at the Houston Texans, we got a 48.5 over-under. This one might be fun. That is my take on this game. This one's going to be fun. There's probably going to be multiple fantasy contributors out of this matchup. As we're guessing, the Texans are going to be moving to football. Kyler Murray's back. This is a matchup we're going to monitor here. Rondale Moore saw 8 targets with Kyler Murray last week. Looks like he's getting rejuvenated with Murray back, getting more opportunities. That's a good thing to see. That could allow him to be fantasy relevant in a matchup like this if the Texans really start pushing the pace on the Cardinals. That is something you want to hold true to. Plus, he's getting targets here. That means he might be able to produce for you. 9.3 fantasy points last week in a not-so-great matchup. A little bit better one here if the game script gets pushed. So something you want to look at. Michael Wilson, too, kind of similar light. He saw a 19% target share last week. So you may want to look at him as well. Next is the Giants at the Commanders. We got a 37 over-under. The Commanders can move the football a little bit. They want to push the pace. The Giants are just getting socked in the mouth every week. That being said, this could be a matchup for Antonio Gibson. Last 3 games, he's averaging 12.8 PPR fantasy points, running about 25 routes per game, and getting a little over 5 targets per game with 11% target share, pushing 12%. And the Giants allow a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers. They're going to be pushing the ball around in the passing game. That could mean some targets ancillarily, if that's a word, going to Antonio Gibson, and that could allow him to push towards that upside a little bit, get him some workload. A guy you may want to look at starting this week. Cowboys at the Panthers, 42.5 over under, and this should be a blowout by the Cowboys. That's what Vegas is saying. They're telling us that. That's their call, and I think a lot of us is thinking that way as well. That being said, I mentioned the sneaky start in the must start video, so go check that out if you're looking for must starts. I dropped that yesterday. But Rico Dowdle here is seeing an increase in touches and snaps. Dallas is going to be up in this game. I could see him and Pollard both being productive. I think both of them are sneaky. I could see Dowdle getting you by with a 10 spot, maybe 11 or 12 fantasy points, maybe even 9, somewhere around that range. Maybe he scores, maybe he doesn't. Carolina is allowing a lot of touchdowns to running backs, 15 on the season. That's really high, one of the tops in the league. They're one of the tops in allowing fantasy points to running backs, and that's due to them allowing a lot of touchdowns to running backs, so that's something you want to pay attention to. Raiders at the Dolphins, 46.5 over under. The targets and touches are very concentrated on the Miami side. Probably that's why they're able to move the ball so effectively. And then you look at the Raiders, you got the rookie quarterback there. You know they're probably going to try and slow it down with Josh Jacobs. Good luck with that. But there's going to be a time where they're going to have to push the pace and try to get back into the game, keep up with the Dolphins, unless the game script goes their way. Thinking of that, Michael Mayer could be a sneaky play this week. Last 3 games, just 3 targets a game, but almost a 13% target share. But his routes are increasing, running about 20 routes per game, a 70% route participation rate. His snaps are increasing, 91% in week 8, 88% in week 9, 88% in week 10. He's getting a lot of opportunities. And a matchup like this, where the pace is going to be pushed and the Raiders may have to play catch up or play keep up with the pace, this could be an interesting matchup for a guy like Michael Mayer. Steelers at the Browns, 33 over under. Vegas is saying, hey, this game is nasty. This one's going to be gross. You got DTR and the Browns defense in this, so no matter which offense is on the field, things are going to be sus. That being said, Jaylen Warren scored 12.6 PPR fantasy points against Cleveland in week 2. He's been getting a lot more snaps, a lot more opportunities in the offense lately. He's been scoring fantasy points as of lately too, with 2 good games back to back. Last 3 games have been seeing a 43% opportunity share. This could also go for Najee Harris as well. He's been looking good. The Steelers are kind of trending up right now. They're starting to play a little bit better here. 13.7 PPR fantasy points per game in the last 3 weeks for Jaylen Warren. And the Browns, they allow points to running backs. It's just a little bit spotty. And with a rookie quarterback in there on the offensive side, that could allow for some things to break on the other end as well. Titans at the Jaguars, 40 over under, and both teams have a good concentration of workload to their skilled players, so it's really hard to project a sneaky start. So you really kind of got to think outside the box here. We mentioned his name earlier in the intro, Kyle Phillips. 13 targets in his last 3 games, second on the team in targets, because DeAndre Hopkins should be getting all the targets. And if Hopkins isn't open, or if you don't want to go deep, Kyle Phillips is there as an outlet. He's the outlet pass catcher in this offense, a guy to look to here. And if the game script gets pushed a bit, maybe he scores a few fantasy points. He's scoring enough right now in the last 2 games to get you by, to get you okay. Not enough to win you leagues, though. Not enough to get you past your matchup, but enough to keep you treading water if you had to play him. Chargers at the Packers, 44 over under. Chargers can push game scripts with their offense and their defense with how you can move the ball on them. So this could be a matchup where there's a lot of fantasy points scored. That being said, Quentin Johnston has been fantasy relevant these last few weeks. Week 8, 10 fantasy points. Week 10, 13.4. Huge increase in snaps. Huge increase in routes ran per game. Look for him to have his moment sometime if these trends continue. Now we're looking at the Bucs at the Niners here, 41.5 over under. The trend here is you do not want to run on the Bucs. You want to pass on them. Every NFL team's doing that, and they're airing it out, and it's causing the Bucs to air it out, and it's causing these awesome game scripts. Even if it's not high scoring, if it's a moderate scoring game, you're still getting a lot of fantasy points scored in those games. That being said, be on the lookout for Trey Palmer. Last 3 games, he's seen a 78.9% snap share. That's increasing. 10.9 ADOT. He gets the deep balls. He's a deep ball dandy. He's a Will Fuller type guy. If the targets are going his way, you may want to look at him. This is a tougher matchup, too, against the Niners. So he might get some of those progression targets as Mayfield's going to have to look a little extra harder for his target downfield. Might equate to Palmer getting an extra target or two, a couple deep balls, as this game could be a little bit chaotic. Now we're looking at the Jets at the Bills. This one could be chaotic as well, considering it's a divisional rival, considering this matchup is going to be a little bit tougher to predict. Due to that, the Bills want to push the pace. The Jets want to stop the pace. Could be a moderately scored game here. 39.5 over under here. Vegas is saying, hey, it might be lower scoring. But again, it could be a game where there's fantasy points scored, just spotty. That being said, Khalil Shakur. Progression targets could be a thing in this matchup. Jets got a tough defense, and the Bills want to push the pace. He's also seeing an increase in targets and routes, and that's something you want to see. He's also seeing an increase in snaps. He's seeing an increase in opportunities, and this is an offense where a wide receiver 3, as a hope and a prayer, could do something for you. Now we're looking at the Seattle Seahawks at the LA Rams. 46 over under, and we got Matthew Stafford back. That's going to change some things. That's going to create some sneaky starts here. Look at Darrell Henderson. Matthew Stafford back. Going to move the football. They got a rapport together. 8.5 PPR fantasy points per game in his last 3 games. 13.5 touches per game in his last 3 games. Royce Freeman, too. Just throw him in there. What the heck? But again, if they're moving the ball more goal line work, the chains are moving, more opportunities created for these running backs. Vikings at the Broncos, 42.5 over under. And an old dandy might be coming back because I got one clue. And it's a Blues Clue type deal where it might lead to something, but probably not. But Marvin Mims saw a huge increase in snaps last week. That could be due to game script, but it was a huge increase. Something to monitor. It's right after the bye as well. Sometimes we see changes with rookies after the bye. He's a deep ball dandy. He does not live off target. He lives off the deep ball, and he lives off connecting on those home runs. He's a home run wide receiver, and that's the type of wide receiver you look for when you're struggling creating a lineup there. Obviously, you want him to get more catches, routes, targets, and stuff like that. But when you're looking at a matchup here where the targets and touches are concentrated, where are you going to find the sneaky start anyways? There are a couple other guys. But Marvin Mims, a guy to look at. Watch the trends going forward. Eagles at the Chiefs, 45.5 over under. Vegas is saying, hey, we do not know what to do with this game. We're going to have a little bit higher point total. But honestly, it could be lower, it could be higher. We do not know what to do, so we're going to wedge it in the middle. That's what they're saying with that. We got a tight spread. Both these defenses can be tight, but you can throw in the Eagles a little bit. And you know what? Guess who's been leading the Chiefs in targets these last 2 weeks? Justin Watson. 8 targets in his last 2 games. Leads the team in targets. That does not sound great. 147 air yards in those 2 games combined. You can throw it on Philly a little bit, and the Chiefs are going to do so. You can dink and dunk them with short targets on the lower 8-eye. Justin Watson is deep ball city, though. He's going to get a couple deep balls in this game, as he does every game. And if it connects, that's a chef's kiss, and that is a lottery ticket that could go ham on you. There's a lot of lottery tickets in this video that we're looking at, and a lot of them are not going to hit, because that's what lottery tickets do. They don't hit. They don't hit. How many times have you bought a lottery ticket, the numbers ran right, and you won $1 million? It's never happened to you before. So look at it in those terms, but you're struggling setting a lineup anyways. You're scraping by on the waiver wire. Go after a lottery ticket that has upside. And if he scores 4 fantasy points, guess what? You're only 4 fantasy points away from that other waiver wire guy you're looking at. 1 or 2 might hit, but you know what? At least you went for the gusto. At least you tried to hit that home run. Let me know that random jabroni player you're starting this week in the comments below. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Do not disappoint Ric Flair. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.